Well, the weather for the whole of the south of England will continue as it has for the next few weeks. It's going to be hot and moist, with temperatures rising steadily as time goes on. There's a chance of steamy moments as we move into the... sod it. We never wanted to do this. We never wanted to be weathermen and women making innuendos about hot atmospheres and drizzly countries. We didn't want to be child-friendly. We didn't want to bang on about being for over 18s only. We want to talk about our sexy adventures. We want to be lifestylers, leaping from bush to bush as we sail down the rivers of British sex clubs and mountains of crazy experiences. The cheeky purple mamba, the liquid silk pumped liberally into our hand, the rodeo classic brief harness complete with Tantus curve, the Enjoy Pure One stainless steel dildo, the hot octopus digit, the ever so short messages on Fab Swingers, the sexy friends on Twitter, and the mighty vanilla alternative. With my best girlie by my side, we'd swing, swing, swing.
Get in the gym or to your car. With our advice, you could go far. We fuck things up and we make mistakes. And talk about our sexy dates. It's getting hard for this to rhyme. Just as well, 'cause it's bed hopping time.
Hello and welcome to the Bed Hoppers podcast. My name's Mr. H.
I'm Mrs. H.
What episode number is this, wife?
I don't know.
It's written right in front of you. Go on, look at this page. Go on.
120.
Wrong.
Oh, yes it is. It says 120.
It is 120. You're right.
Gosh, you're a little shit tonight.
I'm not a little shit. I am just enthused because we have an amazing, delightful special guest who we're not going to talk about just yet. We're going to come to her in a minute.
Wow,
I gave it
cliffhanger.
away slightly. It's a her. At least that's how, I assume that's how she identifies. She may be nodding. She may not be. I don't know. She's looking blankly at me. She's nodding. She gave me the thumbs up. That's cool.
No. That was a thumbs up your bum.
Oh, okay. I can.
You'd take that.
I'd take that. I'd be fine with that. Oh, there's a lot of thumb movement. Unfortunately for audio, this works less effectively, but we can explain what's going on. Anyway, the first thing that I want to do is tell you that we have officially sold out on our social.
I was going to do a drum roll, but I don't know how to do
drum
one.
roll, please.
I don't know how to do
Can you
one.
please do a drum roll?
Do I have to do one?
Yes, please.
Would
drum
you
roll.
just bang the microphone?
Okay. We have. Go on. Officially.
That was a very small drum roll.
That was a very small, tiny
It will
drum
wake
roll.
the dog up.
We've officially sold out of our social on the 4th of February in Southampton in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
We have reached peak numbers.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
We have peaked.
We've definitely peaked. So by the next time that you hear from us, we may well be talking about the social.
In the past.
Well, yes.
Because it will have happened.
It will have happened.
And it will be a glorious event and it will all have been spectacular.
It's going to be amazing. We have got an amazing selection of people turning up to this event.
Yeah.
But, unless you're one of them, this really means very little to you. So,
and if you are one of them, then...
Well done.
Well done.
Thank you very much for supporting us.
You might get interviewed on the night.
You might well do.
Maybe.
So I've actually bought a new microphone.
Like you needed an excuse to go and buy more gadgets.
Well, it was a new microphone and I can wander around like some sort of daft handheld, give me the flag reporter, that I can go out with and interview people and talk to them about the social while we're at the social.
Oh my God, so meta.
I can ruin so much enjoyment of people's time by interrupting their conversations and asking them random questions.
What I really like though is your new mics have little fluffy attachments.
Yes, they are called
dead kittens.
Yes, so normally
Oh
the fluffy thing that goes on top of a microphone is a dead cat.
Yes.
But because they are tiny, they are
dead kittens.
How delightful.
But they're so cute. I literally just want to take them home. I've got them at home because I'm here.
Well, you do. As soon as I opened the box, which was today, in fact.
Yes.
Not probably the day that you're listening to this, but the day that I'm recording it, just so you're aware. I know this is important.
I'm with you.
But Mrs. H immediately grabbed the little furry soot sprite-like thing.
They are so
and then
like
rubbed it against her face.
Yeah, because I do that with everything.
I think she went.
No, I can't.
Does it happen? Anyway, so we've got microphones.
I can do lots of avian impressions, but not
Can you?
a dove.
Give us an avian impression.
I did one for you the other night, actually.
All right, well, give us a proper one.
No, I'm not doing it.
Go on.
Do you remember
Give me a
what
barn
I did?
owl.
It's fucking genius, isn't it?
Well,
I'm going to start my own podcast, Avian Impressions. With
Avian
Mrs.
Impressions.
H,
All
with
right.
Mrs. H.
Give me a seagull.
What? No, I don't know what seagulls do. They steal pasties.
Okay. chihuahuas. Anyways.
Oh my God, not that story.
Heartbreaking story of a chihuahua that was stolen by a seagull.
We don't want to hear it.
Anyways,
it really happened though.
So important things to note, right? Social has sold out. Thank you everyone who has supported us. In a couple of weeks it'll be happening and we'll give you all the wonderful juicy gossip that happens behind the scenes and also talk to people while we're there, right?
Cool.
Other things. PCAP is coming up. So if you want to see us in Palm Springs.
Oh my goodness.
Or Palm Swings.
So you did that?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Follow a note in our show notes thing and, you can join us.
Well, that sounds really professional.
It does. We'll put some notes in the show notes, but you can join us.
You could go to Podcastapalooza and have a look at the actual official details.
You could go to Podcastapalooza and join us. I believe it is already over 50% sold out at the time of recording.
It absolutely is.
And more sexy people are joining. So,
and it's in 5 months' time.
Yes.
Which is terrifying because I'm only halfway to my goal weight.
Only halfway to your goal weight? Is that... What does that mean?
It means I've got some work to do.
Okay, so we better do some lunges after this show. Anyway, we've kept our special guest waiting for so long. She's been making lots of faces that suggest she may well be entertained by this or she may well be asleep. So if
Are you not entertained?
She looks vaguely entertained.
She is.
Anyway, we would like to welcome Violet. Hello, Violet.
You've got a Jeff Goldblum again.
You have got a bit Jake Goldblum.
Why is that so bad?
You've got a bit dulcet.
Yeah. See, you did it again.
How do you feel about
You keep slipping into
bicycles?
Jeff Goldblum.
A bit deeper than I was ready for this early, if I'm honest.
Oh my. Hello. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Oh my God.
Thank you for having me.
This is so Jeff Goldblum.
Is it? Okay.
He's going to sue you.
All right, wife. Explain who she is. Go on. Give us
Right. This is the lovely Violent Croissant, as I have lovingly dubbed her. And it is loving because I met this incredible lady at the Star Trek Borgie, which featured on one of our previous episodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Well, I met her for the first time. I was already aware of her Twitter presence, although she was Violet on Twitter. And when I met her in person, I decided that she was so incredible, I dubbed her Violent Croissant.
Why the croissant?
Because it was Violet Besant on Twitter, I believe. Yes,
it was. That was my original username, and you got too involved.
It was Violet Besant on Twitter, and in my head, I read that as Violent Croissant.
People just look at me and think there's an angry pastry product. I've read it my whole life.
And then when I met her in person, she was so beautiful and statuesque and towered above me. She was wearing heels, I'm sure, but she was absolutely spectacular. And I
wasn't actually. I had bare feet.
Oh Christ, you're just really tall then. Brilliant. I'm diminutive, as we know. I'm very, very small. And when I met her, I was just in awe of this statuesque.
She was the Gandalf
woman.
to your Frodo.
Oh, could you not? Please don't refer to me as Frodo. Go and fuck off with that. I'm not a Frodo.
Dildo Baggins?
Right. I'm ending this.
This relationship or this show?
Well, the jury's out on that one. However, the lovely Violent Croissant, as I shall refer to her, but to other people, yes, Violet.
So thank you for joining us. We finally brought you onto the show. Now, tell us about yourself, because, we know that you do a bit of camgirling. We know that you've done a bit of OnlyFans. We know that you've been a bit of a swinger, a bit poly. Who is this person that we're bloody talking about?
I mean, I think you'd be paying more attention by now. But hello, I'm Violet. Nice to meet you. Only the best people get to call me the Violent Croissant. So I'm sorry, that's Mrs. H only. That's a special thing between us. You have to keep that one to yourself.
You said that I could be the only special thing between you.
No, sorry.
No, it's just me.
Okay.
No,
do carry on. Sorry.
You can watch if it helps.
You know he does that.
I know, and no one can see the look you're giving me right now except me. But hello, I am Violet. I am preliminary a full-time cat girl. That is my main job. That's what a lot of people know me for, is getting naked on the internet. That's what I do. That is my job. I've been doing that for about 3 years now. I've been involved in the adult industry a lot longer, but that's where I've been hanging out recently. On top of that, I'm a bit of a swinger. I don't know if you noticed that, by the way. I don't know if you're aware of that. I don't know if anything had given you that idea.
Crossed our minds that maybe you were that
so
way.
the other reason that, the other reason people know me is obviously because my exploits at the orgy were widely talked about in, I'm not even sure what episode it was. I'm sorry, I should have checked that. I'm sure if everyone goes on Spotify, they were able to find it though. I think it was quite obvious what it was about. And so people have become more interested in finding out my exploits there, I think. And I'm also poly, which makes life a lot easier because otherwise swinging can definitely be a more interesting experience.
Well,
ask me your questions. I'm actually a little bit scared because I know for a fact that you've both got questions, but that Mr. H, you don't actually know all of Mrs. H's questions either, and neither do I, because all you told me was to turn up. So I'm scared. I'm interested.
Hey,
I'm intrigued.
He just told me
things.
to turn up as well. In the same boat. I just do this every time. Just wing
We've
it.
just rocked up and we're hoping to get through this now.
I rarely make notes.
So I had this discussion with Mrs. H while we were in the car earlier today, and
That's
so
how prepared for you.
No, and I said, so what questions have you got? And she was like, I've not thought of any yet. I'm going to think of some. And then I reeled off about 4 or 5 different questions, and then she said, "What were those questions again?" And I think it kind of went in one ear and out the other. So I've got a list of questions that she may have or may not have repeated, given the fact that we had this conversation earlier.
I can't read your writing, so I've got no idea.
Well, the first thing...
Tremendous, exciting opportunity there when we get to the...
Well, the first thing that I want to talk about is that you survived, as you rightfully said, the Borgie. And I think survival is probably about the right word for it. But
survival is definitely the word.
Definitely. You also survived the first Bed Hoppers social.
Oh, yeah.
You're one of the
I did. I was there for the beginning.
Yeah, that did both. Now, have you got any fond memories from either that you'd like to tell our listeners about?
I think I have fond memories from both. I will admit that singing Queen at the top of our voices and I'm sure she will actually be listening to this, Miss Slutty Pants, Mr. Slutty Pants, I would like to apologise, but we're fabulous and you love us, really. Definitely so that's my heart. And also the whole dance party situation, because I was down the stairs loading the dishwasher, as you do in the middle of the night. That's what you do. Hey, you were all glad of it the next day when everyone had clean plates. But I didn't realise, I kind of looked around and realised everyone had sort of disappeared, and I came up mid-dance party. So I'd missed a step where I was like, right, how has this situation occurred? Of all the things I expected to be in that room, this was not it.
Nor did half the people in that room.
There we were. No one knew what they were doing. And it was just one of those really bizarre moments. I've definitely turned over 2 pages at once, but there was nothing else to do except join in at that point. Where do you go?
That's the best response.
If you can't beat them,
join in.
I 100% agree. It was one of those moments where it just sort of happened spontaneously, and I thought Essex Sprite was going to kill me. And we kind of carried on. And then everyone was fine. And it was all sexy until Moana came on. And then suddenly the tone shifted a little bit, which is, my tip to everyone today is to take Moana off your sexy time playlist.
Yeah, but also I really enjoyed watching Secret Vixen having a little naked dance to herself, in the corner of the room at one point. It is she's clearly in a very happy place.
You're welcome, Secret Vixen. You're welcome.
She was in her happiest place at that point, really I think, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, the social was obviously really, really awesome. I think my favourite moment was it was so lovely to meet people who I'd known on Twitter and who we'd spoken to obviously on the Discord, and we get to finally, physically be with people. Because that was the first event after lockdowns opened and everything that I went to. So it was a really nice thing to kind of get into, and obviously really great to hang out with you guys, to meet new people. But I think my main memory of it is wearing that stupidly tight dress that was definitely too tight, and having to get poor LV of his cock curtail and Vanilla Ice actually to at the time with her still in a sling to do a three arm zip up to get me into it.
It was so worth it. You looked sensational.
You did look.
I couldn't breathe, but it went pretty well for me. I think it's just that moment of hi, I've just met you, but if you could have a joint effort on getting me into this dress, that'd be great.
Shoehorn me into it.
It was fantastic, and it survived. It didn't split all evening, so we were all happy.
Nothing was split by the end of that evening, as we all know. So. Moving swiftly onwards. Mrs. H, do you have a question for the delightful
Oh my
lady?
goodness, you've chucked me straight in the deep end.
No, well, you...
Oh, I've got your list.
Are we going through my list first, are we?
No, I can go into my list.
Well, we can sit here and argue all day if you want about whose lists.
I do have questions. Ms. Croissant, Right. Okay. I have
I'm all
questions
ears.
about. I've been told, and I've looked on Twitter to verify this. We don't need music. Twitter has verified this. I believe at some point in your illustrious career, you've been involved in financial domination.
I have. And
Findom.
I think that's findom is one of the first questions that people like always ask me when they discover that I've been involved in domination, because it is such a complicated area and quite misunderstood, I think, in a lot of cases.
Yes, and this is why I'm absolutely fascinated to be talking to you, because it's something that I've got relatively little knowledge of, and that's not for want of like wanting to explore and find out more information. I do like reading up on this thing. However, because I knew we were going to interview, I thought, actually, no, you know what, I'm going to keep a fairly open mind about things and not really research this, because I like actually you to talk us through, your kind of interpretation of what you see as financial domination and the whole shebang, really. And I've got a few questions around it as well afterwards, no doubt.
Let's do this. As a base, financial domination is the act of someone giving you their money from their wages that you then take, that you do what you wish with, and they are then left to survive on whatever finances they still have. It's a very simple thing at its base, basically based around what it says on the tin, you dominating their finances. There's obviously a lot of moral things around it. You have to be very careful. So when I have been involved in it, you have to kind of know how much money someone has. You have an obligation to check they're not, in debt, that they're still going to be able to eat, etc. And you have to have a duty of care, like any area of domination. The thing is, you have a care to that client, and you have to understand that they may not necessarily understand their limits as well as you do, because they're in that space of craving and you're the one in charge. So that's kind of the base of it. One of the things that has happened over the past couple of years definitely is that definition has been lost, and that a lot of people have started doing a lot of things and then using the word findom and trying to then make that into findom, if that makes sense. And that's where it's become a much more complicated industry and a much more complicated fetish now.
Yes. So I think part of the misunderstandings that exist out there there's a big difference between there being an established kind of almost contract between the submissive and the dom around what you want, and just mean girls taking money. Basically.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the thing. If you're getting into this sort of situation, it is a contract. No, using exactly the right word. You should be in a situation where everything has been talked about. With any element of domination, there is a time where a submissive will approach, and then it's time for the dom to almost interview them and see whether they actually gel, whether they have that connection, and kind of what they can build together, because you are building a relationship at the end of the day. I think a lot of people, when you say domination, think whips and chains and upset and everything, and that's actually not how it is at all. So when it comes to things like financial domination and stuff, you've got to be making sure that the people who are going to be in charge are people who are going to be, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it, people who are going to be sensible about it. And what you said, you get a lot of people saw it as just a way that people were giving them money. Yeah. They thought, well, this is easy. And you know what? If I turned up to you in a pub and gave you 30 quid and walked off, you'd probably be quite happy. Do you know what I mean? I'm not putting a price on you. Obviously, you're worth a lot more than that, not clarifying. Other payments are available. But yeah, I think people just clung on to this thing that, well, that's just a way to get money. And where during COVID and everything as well, there were so many people who were just able to be online, and there was nobody to regulate them, nobody to say no. People were living in their houses, not talking to their friends, not talking to other people. And it became quite easy to victimize people in various areas and take massive advantage of people, really, because they didn't know any better. If enough people, that's one of the things of social media, if enough people use a term like findom, and it is hot girls asking for money, people will start to think it's real. People will start to associate that with being what findom is. And that was how it became sort of quite a problematic industry over the past year, where people have been taken massive advantage of.
I mean, people often measure their self-worth with money. And thinking it's, my understanding of this is that it's a kind of level of intimacy, but, can involve sort of capitalism and masochism, and there's many like levels to the whole.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many levels to it. And the thing is, every sort of dom sub relationship, regardless of what it's about, will be individual, because, you know, these individual people, you're humans at the end of the day. Every dynamic will be different, like in any other kind of relationship. Some people, or a lot of my clients, have gone into something like findom because they like the simplicity of it. They have a set sort of, they have their budget, they have what they're giving you, in return for which they are serving you, which at the end of the day is what it's about. It's very clean cut. It's very simple. There's no tasks necessarily in the base of findom. There's no tasks. There's no content switching hands. It's a very simple form of submission, but also a very heavy form of submission from both sides, because from their side, they are then forcing themselves to adapt their lifestyle for the sake of serving you, which is a big thing to do if you think about it. You know, and then from your side, you are accepting their money and kind of getting to live a more comfortable life simply because of their existence. So it's quite a heavy power dynamic.
It's huge, isn't it? It really is. And it's an area that, as I said, I don't know too much about, but I was really, really fascinated about it. And I kind of know that you were involved in this. Is it a fetish, would you say?
It can be. I think the clients I've had, and you can only speak to yourself because every dom runs things differently, and I'm quite sure there'll be at least one person who listens to this podcast and has a go at me, and that's fine. But when you, we're not scared. When it comes down to it, for some people, it's that they want the simplicity. Their fetish is actually submission, and this is just the ultimate way for them to attain it, to be having to move their life around for the sake of their submission. But for other people, the fetish is based around wanting to make someone happy. You know, that's another interesting thing. You get the clients who simply just want to do it and keep it simple and feel okay. And then you have another base of clients who want to know that they've made your day better, who want to know that your happiness has been achieved by them giving you money in a way that nothing else they could do for you is going to do, because being given money allows you to do things you wouldn't be able to do without it. You know, there's very few other ways you can pay for life. And so, yeah, I think I would consider it as a fetish in some areas, but for some people, it's simply that they don't want the bells and whistles of a traditional dom-sub relationship. They just want the submissive aspect, and they don't want to, as I say, get involved in tasks, get involved in BDSM, get involved in anything other than the very standard submission that can be achieved like this.
Are these mostly online interactions then? You don't meet? No, they can. So for some people, they prefer it to be online, but cash meeting is also a very big thing. And that was another thing that got shown on Twitter. I think it's why a lot of people and other social media sites are available. But what people were seeing was these girls turning up and being given huge amounts of cash and walking away. And if you think that's all that you're doing, then yeah, absolutely, everyone's going to try it. For some people, as I say, they prefer to keep it online, they prefer to keep the anonymity, and that's quite common. But there is also a breed who want that risk of exposure, which kind of brings you into the exposure fetish as well. So you have people who want the risk of being seen to be giving someone money. There's also people, if they are in sort of the BDSM side of it, who want to be either verbally or physically humiliated, and online isn't quite enough. Online submission is definitely something that's grown a lot bigger in the past few years, obviously with people not being able to get out and that. Pre-COVID, it was definitely a smaller market because it's something that is obviously so personal and so in-depth and, like I say, really, really misunderstood in a lot of cases. But it is this incredibly intimate, or it should be, this incredibly intimate service that requires a lot of trust that is quite hard to build, over a computer screen. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole intimacy that you build, I suppose, and in order to access those levels of emotions that you can only get from feeding your fantasy and your fetish, and that's
absolutely. It's massively based on respect and trust from both parties, and an understanding everyone's on the same page, and that you are safe, but so are they, and that everyone is kind of understanding of each other. Basically,
the trick is, I guess, is that like you say, none of this is regulated. There isn't a standard. There isn't a guild. And
that is something that I really hope changes over the years to come, because it is, from a client point of view, it can be obviously a really dangerous industry, especially if you're new to fetish and you're sort of just exploring. And obviously, people turn 18 every day. People get into looking at the adult industry and getting involved in it every day. There will always be sort of a new intake of people who don't understand that this isn't regulated, and that anyone can become, can say they're a dom. Anyone can decide to become a findom. and there's no body in place to go, you know, to teach people about safety and to teach people about the sort of moral side of it, or to stop people if they are taking advantage, which, you know, in something that involves so much safety in every sense of the word, has always felt quite wrong to me.
Yeah, it's a strange one because, you know, like you say, if you can go bungee jumping, but would you go with someone that isn't safety qualified or doesn't have the right certificates? You know, everything is risk. But actually to jump into this without knowing that someone isn't going to take advantage of you and that you aren't going to come away from this experience broken is such a tricky thing.
It is. And, you know, I think that's one of the things as well of sort of, I think that's one of the things that's possibly stopped some people actually exploring fetishes in all manners is the concern that it could go wrong and that there isn't any sort of backup there. But it's exactly the same from, you know, my point of view. When these people are getting things involved in things like findom, I can't credit check them. I can't check. I have to a heavy degree, take their word that they know what they're getting into and that they can afford it and that they are, you know, mentally sound and physically are going to be okay. And you have to put a lot of trust in them as well, which if people are in a vulnerable position, they're not necessarily going to be thinking straight. And that can make it really, really hard as well. When you haven't got that sort of, like you say, you wouldn't go bungee jumping with Dave you met on the M4. It's that same sort of thing. If anyone called Dave currently sat on the M4 is listening, it's not personal.
But it is a great bungee jump.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I actually quite enjoyed it. I'll put a TripAdvisor review out for that. But, you know, yeah, it's exactly that. There's so many things in life, especially involving finances, that you wouldn't do without a safety net.
I'm conscious I've monopolised Mr. Rich's questions, so I have one more and then I'll let him ask some questions.
Go for it.
I promise. So what's the difference between financial domination and sugar daddies, for example? So some of the terms here.
Financial domination does not involve any form of change of services. I think is probably the best way to put it. Financial domination is where the submissive party agrees to give over their money to the dominant party. That is the act of submission. That is the be-all and end-all of it. There will not be sexual services involved. There will not be BDSM services involved. It's very clean cut. There will not be meats involved in that or anything like that. It's a very clean cut. If they want to do cash meats or anything, that would be extra. It's just about financial submission. When you move into things like sugar daddies, there is an element of relationship in there for a start. There is often a sexual element. About 80% of sugar baby relationships do involve a sexual element. And there's also the element of nicety. So when people are involved in sugar relationships, what you have is the dominant party being the sugar daddy, for instance, and then your sugar baby is going to be being very nice to them, texting them a lot, saying, you know, giving them that experience. So that's where those two things start to become quite different. It's what you're getting for your money and the sort of relationship that you're having as a result of that money changing hands.
Yeah. Thank you. The only last sort of thing I was going to mention is, gosh, ages ago. So I think someone randomly got in touch with me and asked me about pay pigs. So the term pay pigs has kind of stuck with me as another kind of term that you might encounter in that kind of realm of financial domination. So what's the pay pig? So
pay pigs, cash whales, human ATMs. Yeah. All great terms. I honestly They're fantastic terms. But the basic things like that is human ATMs, pay pigs, they all come down to the same thing. These are people who are simply just giving you money when you ask for it. So if you have a financial domination arrangement, as a general thing, it would be, for instance, that person gets paid on the 25th, a certain percentage that has been pre-agreed is sent straight through to you. They're left with the rest of the money. And that continues month after month. That's a continuous financial arrangement. Things like human ATMs and pay pigs are more people who you would use sort of ad lib. So, for instance, you're out for the day, you want to go shopping, you would text your pay pig and say, I'm going to be going shopping. You need to you can send them the bills for reimbursement, or you can say, you need to transfer me £300 right now. And that's where the term human ATM comes from. These are more sort of ad hoc, straight away. And because it gives a different feeling for the clients as well. You know, you have the people who appreciate that there's going to be that day that they get paid where they're also going to get a lot of attention. They know they're going to be making you happy and they sort of pace themselves. And then you get the people who are in it for an instant hit, that instant hit that they are making their dom happy. And yeah, that's where you get things like pay pigs and human ATMs. Those are people who want that quick, fast, you do what I say, and don't necessarily want the sort of long-term arrangements as much.
It's also impossible for me not to hear it under the Moon Pig advert, like paypig.com.
We're also available for weddings and bar mitzvahs.
And orgies. You and I are both available for...
Absolutely. We will do a karaoke orgy.
We will sing you through to your climax. Don't worry about that.
Please book me directly through Bedhoppers.
All right, so I have a question for you.
Boo, his.
Boo. No, this is a nice question. So one of the things that I have noticed, and that all of us have noticed about your social media presence, is that your selfie game is fucking brilliant. Genuinely, I mean, you're adorable in real life, but your selfie game is fantastic.
It's very strong.
One of the worst things about being in the swinging lifestyle is that generally people's selfie game is less than great.
Thanks. You don't have to point it out to like all our listeners.
No, but we all know it. We've talked about it. So what I would like to know is your top hints for taking a bloody great picture. How can we help people out? What would you recommend that they do?
First things first, you're going to go on Amazon. Other services are obviously available, but buy a 10 or 12 inch ring light with a phone holder in it. Don't buy the ones that don't try and like put your phone in certain places or get it at certain angles. Trust me, just buy the thing that holds it for you. That is my number one tip. With the ring lights as well, a lot of people get ring lights, they simply turn them on. Obviously, everyone has different tones depending on their skin tone, their hair tone, the house they're in, etc. There's so many things. So whenever you're going to take your photos, play around with that lighting. Put your phone on portrait mode, get your sort of angles that you want, and then play around with that lighting, because you might find that it's not actually that you're taking a bad photo, you're just using bad lighting. And, you know, most ring lights come with about 30, 40 different settings on them. So I really do advise playing around with your lighting before thinking, this is my fault. My second thing would be try to keep your background. I say this, I'm going to say, try to keep your backgrounds either interesting or very clean. So you either want like white walls behind you so everything's straight on you, or you want the sort of background where it's full and it looks like you've got a lot going on behind you. I feel bad saying this because what no one can see right now is my background is shocking. I've got just to give people an idea, I've got a very dodgy sofa that I might fall through at any moment. And then fairy lights coming down behind me. I've got a microphone. This is not a good shot that I'm doing right now. But, you know, do as I say, not as I do. So yeah, my second thing would be think about your background. Because a lot of the time when I see photos, it can be a really great photo, but if you've got a really, really dodgy background, it's just going to take the eye away, and it's going to make it look like it's going to make people distracted from what they should be looking at.
I 100% agree. And the amount of times that Mrs. H has zoomed into the back of a background and seen, like, I don't know, a pair of dirty pants or something.
One of my favourite games. What's in the background?
It is. I mean, we had one where someone had a pasty on their lap.
Yes, and a cat and a pasty. I was like,
was the pasty on the cat? Was the pasty next to the cat? Was there a plate? I need to know.
The cat was on the arm of a settee, right? The dude was sat on the settee and he had a plate.
He was naked.
And
of course.
He had a plate and he was resting the plate on his belly and he had a pasty
We're
on the
assuming
plate.
it was a pasty. It may have been a steak bake. Other pastries are available.
I mean, as a connoisseur of pastries, you will know, I'm sure, this was a pastry that I can only assume was either steak bake or a Ginster's pasty. And
was this like a pre-made petrol station pasty, or did it look like there might have been some bake in the oven work going on?
I don't think he baked it himself. I'm
shocking.
You're assuming
sure
a larger level of quality than I would have placed on this picture.
Shop-bought pastry. Had it resting on his belly on the plate, and then the cat was eyeing it up in the background. So all I saw was not the naked form, but no, the fucking pasty and the cat and the settee and the actual hot mess that was in the background. I was like, this is the best. This is giving me so much stuff to go on.
It's so important. It can, because you can blur stuff out. I mean, you
could.
You don't
why
have
would you
to
blur
show
out
it.
that fantastic cat?
Yeah, but you don't have to show everything. And I think this is part of the art, is that, you know,
the
okay,
washing, really?
A nice background is great. But if you are in a busy environment, just use some photoshopping techniques just to make it slightly better. Make it black and white. Take the emphasis away from all the splotches of colour there. Blur the edges around.
Black and white has been saving us since the MySpace days, let's be honest. I'm a big fan of a black and white when in peril. The only other thing I'd say that I forgot to bring up as far as good photos, daylight. I cannot, natural light will always present you with the best photos. If you can find a good source of natural light, it's so much easier to get a good photo. You know, photography is like 80% lighting, let's be honest. But that's get all the light you can into the area, and you'll save yourself a lot of Photoshop trouble later down the line.
This is so true.
It's
And
music to our ears, isn't it? Probably
it is.
You
And I
two
think
could just like go off in a little corner together and
we
well-lit
could.
corner.
Well, we can.
Well-lit corner and take selfies.
We'll be
with each
back
other.
in what, 25 minutes?
Yeah, don't flatter yourself.
Well, I was going to do it twice.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
a lot of selfies.
I think that's more than I could handle in one session.
But I think it's really important, once you've taken a picture, look at the fucking thing. Like, just don't like go immediately post. Just kind of have a look at it and feel free to change the settings. Look at it. Does it look better in black and white? Do you want like to bring the blackness around the edges? Do you want to highlight certain bits? Have a muck around with it rather than just straight away posting it, because we've seen so many of those. And I'm not a fan of the gynecological zooming thing. You know, that's not my thing. But have a look.
There's a place for it.
There is a place.
That.
I'm sure
I totally get
someone
that.
enjoys it. But
Pornhub, maybe. But
it's that. Does it take on your personality? Does it give you character? Are you being best represented? And get to know. Take a lot of pictures and get to know what works for you and what doesn't. If you look at a picture and you go, then don't fucking post it. It's not.
Do you know what? I remember a really cute picture of Ms. Croissant here once on Twitter.
There's a lot of cute pictures.
There's a lot of very cute pictures of her, I'll be honest. However, one of my favourites was that picture she posted of herself eating a lasagna from the freezer for breakfast. Do you remember that picture?
I do. I was on this sofa actually, and I still think that was one of my best pictures.
I have to say you're winning.
It was a really, really good lasagna. I'm not going to lie to you. I'll try and dig that photo out before this goes live.
She's my spirit animal.
I do not judge at what time of day I eat certain foods. I will eat all sorts of things at all sorts of times. I am that person, and I have no issue with being that person. But like when you say about the whole taking multiple photos, that is, you know, every time you see a photo of me on Twitter, remember I've taken between 30 and 50 photos. And they then get narrowed down to about 4 or 5. Those 4 or 5 I then look at and go, okay, which is the best out of this? I look at them on small and then in full screen, and then kind of put them into editing, filter them, etc. I don't like to overly filter. I think I've never used Facetune or anything like that. I'd rather get the right angle than do that. And also, I think it's important that people see even the lasagna picture. Which I really will have to try and find now. I don't ever want people to think that, you know, I don't have cellulite, that I'm a size 6, that, you know, my boobs aren't a bit saggy. I want people to be able to see that normal can also be beautiful. I don't feel a need, like a lot of people in my industry obviously do choose to use quite heavy editing. I just try to make myself not look so pale that I blend in with my own walls, which is a constant problem in my life. But yeah, like whenever you see a photo or whenever anyone sees a photo, just remember those photos have been through a whole process, and there is, say, 45 other photos that have never made it to Twitter. And if you're doing like a full photo shoot for OnlyFans or covering myself in milk, Mrs. H, which is on my list, you know, that's 3 or 4 hours of photos, and by the time you've done it, you'll edit and post maybe 10.
So I've got another question, which is probably linked. I'm not jumping ahead too much, but obviously we covered in the beginning that this lovely lady also does camming, and I appreciate you've probably got questions about camming. But my question is more around, given that some people in this industry may rely on things like heavy editing processes to make, you know, their pictures pop and all the rest of it. But if you're doing camming, do you have the same level of access to things that will make you look better? Different when you're camming?
No, is the short answer to that. There are probably apps that you could get involved in, but they would be very hard to actually work with in real time. So when I'm camming, I do use a ring light and I use a softbox. Just to kind of bounce that extra daylight in, that's a big box with a big daylight bulb in for anyone who doesn't know.
It makes your light much more soft, so it's like a gentle sunlight.
I like that.
Light.
And I have one following me around all the time.
I put one up in our front room. She hated the fucking thing, but she hates most lights because it's Mrs. H. One thing I will say, I think, with photographs, before we go and delve into this more, is that with photography, I like to present the best version of myself that I can without altering myself. I think that's the kind of rules I live by. So you absolutely could see me looking like this if you passed me in the street. You 100% could do. but you might have to blink quite a lot and squint a bit and look at me at the exact right time, at the exact right moment the sun bounces off me. But those other times, the moments where I'm alive and I'm walking and I'm a normal human being, which I am 100% of the time, you're not going to see all of that. So it's almost like that best version of you that you can have without fucking around with yourself is the kind of way that I like to feel about
absolutely. And I think it's also, you know, like you say, you want to look good, you want to present that best side, but also from a point of view where you're going to meet people in real life, be that, you know, at socials or whatever, or even, you know, general events. I've never wanted to be the person who you don't recognize when they walk in, because that's 100%. Actually worse. If people have made this image of you in their mind and that's why they follow you, that's why they're part of your community, and then meet you if you're nothing like that, you're going to, you know, they're going to take a step back and be like, that is not what I signed up for.
Exactly. They'll be like, man, you've got a face of
and that makes me very anxious. Just the thought of walking in and then be like, nope, I can't do that.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like the memory of what you could have been.
I can't take a selfie for shit. I literally can't do it.
We'll have a selfie day. We'll get it sorted. Don't worry.
It's an interesting one because I think so. I went through a phase of almost taking 1 million selfies a day.
No kidding.
Because I didn't like the way I looked.
What?
But I did. No. You can't determine how I feel about myself.
I know.
You can tell me how you feel about me. But it took a lot of pictures to kind of figure out kind of what I liked about myself and what I wanted to bring out. And once I got that, then actually taking pictures of myself became a lot easier. I know my favorite pose of me is an open mouth, grinning like a maniac, eyes wide up, glasses. That's my look because that's how I feel comfortable about myself. But it took a lot of taking pictures and kind of figuring it out to get to that point. You've not done that. You kind of, in a way, you're kind of, you don't do it because you have me to take those pictures for you.
I don't like any pictures, whether you take them or I take them.
Sometimes you do.
Really?
Sometimes you. And
I took one today.
There you go.
I put one on Twitter today.
But it does take practice and it does take time, especially if you're not keen on yourself, to get the look that you feel comfortable with. And you kind of go, that's my look. That's how I feel all right. And then once you've got that, then you can start to play with all the lighting and you can start to play with all the different bits. But you kind of almost need to play in the park to kind of get that moment.
Well, Violet's look is naked with tattoos and pretty hair. Like, I'm just going to.
That is my go-to in many cases. When in doubt, bring the boobs in. There's a lot. Do you know what? The dresses are an interesting one because when I first got Twitter and stuff, I mainly kept it purely for work, and I mainly kept it to the good loots. And then I can't even remember why I think I posted a video or something, and someone was like, "What are you wearing?" And so I started posting the dresses. I realised they were this really big thing for people that I was not expecting. I get 99% of people are really, really lovely about it. Just think it's really, really cool. But you always get that one person every time I put it up. It's like, why are you dressing like a granny? Well, that's my choice. I've made this decision. I'm very comfortable. I just find absolutely hilarious.
They are fabulous dresses.
It is the risk of putting something on the internet, though, isn't it? That for every one person that's amazing, you'll get
someone's going to have an opinion, and that's just one of those things you have to kind of deal with. If you choose to put yourself in that sort of front lane, then you've got to understand there's always going to be someone who's got an opinion on how you parked.
Yeah, if I get one more Ricky Tomlinson alike, then I'm going to fucking flip a table there.
I've always kept quiet about that.
Do you get the old Ricky Gervais one?
That's fine. I can live with Gervais. That's fine. I'm all right with that. I laugh at my own jokes. I'm down with it.
I think you're hotter personally. I'd choose you over Ricky any day.
So hey, what are you doing in about 10 and a half minutes?
10 and a half minutes.
Yeah, we'll finish this in about 10 and a half minutes. We'll be fine. We'll get all the questions out of the way.
Give it 8 and we'll be all right.
Oh, good. Perfect.
But yeah, like you say about the photos as well, the other thing you said when you took loads of photos, I think sometimes if you don't like how you look, that can actually be a really, really good thing to do, is because if you take enough, you will desensitize to the bits you don't like. You will take so many photos that you genuinely become I used to be a lot more conscious and take a lot longer to take photos that were a lot less quality than I managed to take now, just because it was something I wasn't used to taking my own photos and stuff, and I wasn't sure how to do it, and I felt really uncomfortable. And those bits of my body now, I do not care about in the slightest. I've just got used to it because I've taken so many, unfortunately, part of my job means I take thousands of photos of my own body every year, and that does definitely desensitize you to the bits you don't like because you've just been looking at them for so long. You're like, oh, for God's sake, never mind.
with that in mind, okay, so you take lots of pictures of yourself. What I want to know is, who do you follow? What porn do you watch?
Well, I'm gonna shock you somewhat here, and say that I don't actually watch a lot of porn. I think because I've been in this industry so long, when I watch studio porn, I feel like I can see every health and safety issue they've got. I know everything that goes on behind the scene. I'm like, there was definitely a wire in the corner of that. I find it really hard to get off on that kind of stuff because it's just, I know how processed it is. And then when it comes to amateur and stuff, I am more likely, to be fair, there are a couple of amateurs that I do follow. The lovely Billy Porter, incredibly hot, incredibly lovely. And then there's a couple of other people I follow, like on OnlyFans and stuff, who I can kind of get more behind their amateur side of things. But for me personally, I think because I also know the amount of work they're putting in, and I know like how hard it is to do that because I have to do it myself, it kind of takes the edge off that sort of thing for me, because I just see the work they've put into it.
What do you love about your job?
People. I love people. I love talking to people. I love getting to know new people. I really enjoy being able to do that on a daily basis because you have your mixture of regulars, and then every day you're also meeting new people. And I also really love that because I am generally considered to be quite approachable when I'm online. People will ask me questions that they wouldn't ask normal people or even normal cam girls. So, for instance, yesterday someone came into one of my cam rooms asking me about swinging and how he should get into it, and that, he thought his girlfriend might want to try it. And we had a really completely non-sexy conversation about how he could go about it. I told him to listen to this amazing podcast by some people called the Bed Hoppers. I don't know if you know them. They run this really good podcast talking about the highs and lows of swinging and all the things you can do and what can go wrong. And I said, they're great people. But yeah, it's stuff like that. I'll start wearing a bed hopper t-shirt on free chat. It'll be great. But it's that sort of thing of honestly feeling like sometimes you've actually helped people. And a lot of the time as well, it'll be things like mental health. There are people who will come to me because they want to just talk about the fact they've had a bad day with someone who's not going to say, shrug it off, or someone who's not going to go and tell people they know. And it's knowing that people can have that confidence to do that with me, and that trust is really, really lovely and something that makes me absolutely love my job.
I like that answer. That's made me really happy.
That's made you really happy.
No, I like to hear about the joy that people find in what they do every day. So
I think we've certainly found it similar, and the reason why we do this is to help people, and really so that we can remember what the fuck happened as well. And
but it's more than a chronicle of what we do. It's a hey, I hope someone benefits from hearing these anecdotes, and anecdotal advice is probably as good as you're going to get, isn't it? Because you kind of want people to go away knowing that someone out there has done something that you can relate to in some way. So
in many ways, it's a don't do what we did.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a really interesting point. But it is about it being relatable, and it's about even when people come and talk to me, they get to have that time where I can go, well, no, everyone's done that. Or I hear that all the time. The amount of people who come in to cams, because what you get is a lot of people when they're first exploring fetish, the first place they will explore it is cam, because it's anonymous, because it allows them that outlet without sort of fear of anything coming back on them. So when they're first exploring something, deciding if it's something they want to do in real life, a lot of the time, the first place they'll come to explore that, as I said, is cam. But when you've got people, the amount of people come in going, oh, I've got this really, really weird fetish. I don't know if you've ever heard it before. And it'll be something like, I really like being spanked. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. But being able to give people that reassurance that being experimental is okay, being into a fetish is okay, and that they're not some freak for having a fetish is actually really important to me. Because if I was in that position, I know I'd want someone to say it's okay to experiment, it's okay to like what you like, and not make you feel, chastised for being into something.
Seeking to normalise things is kind of
absolutely
one of the biggest things for us, isn't it, sometimes?
It really is. I think so. We've got time for a couple more questions, and what I'm really interested to know is what the heck is a typical day like for you?
There's no such thing as a typical day. It's one of those things of, so I wake up stupidly early, as anyone who follows me on Twitter will know, because I tweet a lot of shit at 6 a.m. And some great things too. Sometimes there's some morning boobs, and we're all there for that, right?
I love it on you.
And lasagna, yeah. If I'm going to have a breakfast lasagna, the internet needs to know about that, I feel.
Definitely.
I should have done what Violet ate instead of what Violet did. I'm sure that's a fetish for people. But yeah, so I get up really quite early, and my work day is starting at sort of 6 o'clock in the morning a lot of the time, because you're checking Twitter, you're checking OnlyFans messages, and that sort of does set up your day, to be fair, because you've got, on some days you'll have sort of 10 people who want custom videos and loads of stuff that needs to be done first thing, or something on Twitter that you've been tagged in that you need to reply to and get involved in. Sometimes when nothing have happened overnight. So you kind of have to start your day with, you're always working a bit behind, because you're starting your day with whatever people have come through to overnight. And then you go onto live cam, and you never know what's going to happen. You never know. I had a quite intense conversation about chocolate gâteau the other day with 4 people. I have been taught how to make various kinds of pastry before now. And, it's the thing about cam is it's people seeking connection a lot of the time. It's not just self-directed porn. So they will talk to you about anything. I have a regular who cammed with me just to show me his new windows. He's got mock leading. It's very nice. We discussed them in detail before this. But, it's that sort of thing. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know what you're going to do. No 2 days are the same. And then when I used to do cam shifts, so I normally do 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. in the day, and then get on with my life. And then I go back online, normally 8 or 9 o'clock till 1 a.m. the next day. So it's grueling. That's the best way to describe the cam schedule. But it's also really, really fun. It doesn't, a lot of the time, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like chatting away to awesome people. And yeah, not knowing what comes next is actually great for me, because I don't get bored. Because you've got to be on your toes, and you just don't know how your day's going to go. You might be covered in custard. You might just be being adored. And, that's all part of the fun of it.
And what's been your most favourite cam experience?
I have an American regular who is very into sensual domination, but from his side. Now, as I said at the beginning of this, having the whole sub-dom relationship on cam is quite a hard thing, and sort of getting that rapport going can be quite hard. So when he first started cam with me and said, the thing I like to do is essentially dominate women on cam. He's like, what I need you to do basically is close your eyes and do as I say. And I thought, all right, it's a bit weird, but and I'm not sure how this is going to work. But we'd already spoken before on messages, and we had a good rapport. So I already thought, I'll give it a go. And he's got an amazing accent for a start, which has always been a thing for me. But he's one of those people who has this massive ability to make you feel comfortable just by his voice. And so my favorite thing with him was, this first cam experience where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be into this, and just instantly feeling so at ease and so relaxed. And before I know it, we've been doing this for an hour. And then at the end of it, him being really thankful, really respectful, tipping me and getting on with his day. And we'd be like, oh, we'll just go back to normal with that then, shall we? But that's definitely been my favorite experience. I think that was the first time I realized the true level of intimacy that you can create on cam.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It is, yeah.
So OnlyFans then. I mean, obviously this year or last year was a bit of a debacle for OnlyFans.
Yeah, it went through some...
It was an experience for us all.
Has that now meant that people have to reach out to different platforms to back up?
Actually, no. It was... So the other reason some people know me or possibly listening to this is because I spoke to Huffington Post about this when it happened. And what I said at the time was, if they'd gone through with their changes, that's exactly what would have happened. It would have resulted in this massive split, because different clients would have gone to different sites, etc. And you would have basically been having to do 4 jobs to make the same as you were making in one. When they went back on those changes, although the sex worker community didn't want to go back, because how we were treated was shocking and really not acceptable, especially when, we are their biggest earners. The fact of it was, the client base wanted to stay. They wanted to stay with what they knew. They wanted the safety. They wanted knowing how everything worked. They didn't want to change. So what most sex workers were basically forced to do was actually go back to OnlyFans, because at the end of the day, no amount of being upset is going to change the fact that that's where your money's coming from, and that's what's paying your bills. So actually, most people ended up just going back to OnlyFans as their main thing, and having to, in a way, live in a fear that it could happen at any time still. But unfortunately, that's one of the things about sex work. It's not how it should be. But the one thing you have is, there is always a chance the rug is going to be pulled out under your feet. And that is just the downside of the job. You've got to always be ready for that.
It's a really tricky one, I think, because, we're all very platform dependent. And even from a swinging lifestyle kind of perspective, in the UK, we all head to Fab because Fab is the biggest, and that's where everyone is. And you've got to kind of go where the numbers are. And
it's a safety in numbers thing as well, because the same as you say for Fab, but people go there because they feel, as everyone else is there, it's a safer option for them 100%. To get involved with. And it's exactly the same with things like OnlyFans. It's a brand name everyone knows.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the same as if you were going to go and open a new bank account, would you go to a random thing you'd found online, or would you go to a high street bank name you were actually comfortable with and knew? So it's exactly the same kind of thing. People they feel like they need that security in order to move forward.
100%, and it's definitely I've certainly been following it online, and it's been interesting just watching people sort of, you know, there was a sort of almost a unionized move away from it, and then it came back, or they didn't make the changes that they said they were going to make, and people were like, well, you know what, it's probably more convenient to be here. People are here, it's easy, let's stay where we are, and until a platform comes up that has the numbers and that does it in a different way, people are going to keep doing that. And the same with Fab, and the same with all the other different sites that are out there. People are going to go back to what they know because it's easy and convenient. It's like Amazon, you know, why go anywhere else? Because you can get, you know, whilst you're giving Bezos a bit more cash, you know that thing's going to turn up the next day, and it's going to be there, and it's going to be relatively reasonably priced.
I think what you're saying here is that the Bedhoppers OnlyFans collaboration is coming soon, and a fast swing content site is in the making.
Well, we had a delightful conversation about OnlyFans. I think it must have been last year at some point with some, I can't remember who it was, and Mrs. H was like, "Yeah, I could do an OnlyFans," and I'm like, I turned to her, I was like, "What? Like, really?" And then someone explained to her what it was. And then she went, no, I wouldn't do that.
You've certainly got to be a very certain type of person, I think, to survive in this industry. But especially one of the differences with people when they do OnlyFans compared to camming and stuff is so many people have free profiles or always have deals on and everything. So OnlyFans, you have to do a lot of work for a lot less money, frankly. You know, you'll be speaking to someone on cam for 10 minutes, that will cost about £20. You'll be speaking to someone on OnlyFans for 3 days and you'll have made about 15.
Yeah.
So it's changed the industry because you get people now who are moving from OnlyFans looking for cam girls and expecting the same sort of very cheap service. And you have to be like, no, sorry, that's not how it works around here.
Yeah, I get the sense that OnlyFans is a benefit if you've got a whole ton, like a library of stuff that you can hoik. And that you
absolutely. And the thing about it as well is, you know, it was set up as a place for people who already had fan bases to monetize their fan bases. So it's not something I ever suggest people go into from scratch, because if you don't have a fan base, you know, the reason they don't offer much promotion themselves is because that wasn't what they were there for.
It's similar in that way to Patreon in that kind of approach, and I can't see us getting on there. I can't see Mrs. H doing that at all.
Plus, you'd hate it if I was on OnlyFans.
Yeah, well, because I'd be editing constantly. I'd be like you don't.
Maybe it should be getting more attention than you, and you'd get upset.
Yeah, that's 100% why. And then I'd have to work to make that content that she'd get all the attention for. Fuck that. This bad enough doing the podcast, and do all the running around and editing, and everyone's like, "Oh, Mrs. H, we love your voice. You're so wonderful."
I'm a real star.
Oh yeah, I'm totally here for Mrs. H. Sorry.
Yeah, fine, brilliant. Thank you, everyone. So. Rounding this up, thank you ever so much for joining us today.
It has been a pleasure.
It's been our pleasure, and it's been wonderful just seeing your delightful face again. What I'd like to do, though, is offer you the opportunity to give our gentle listeners, if they've not heard of you before...
then fuck you.
Jeez. Okay.
Frankly, you should know about
I love how protective you are over me, honestly.
Literally.
It makes my heart happy.
Yes, the violent croissant is ours and ours alone. However, if you want to find us digitally out in the world, where can people find you?
So people can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/whatvioletdid. They can find me on OnlyFans at onlyfans.com/whatvioletdid. And they can find me on Adult Work at adultwork.com/violet. Also, if you do follow me on Twitter, all those links are in my bio. Just click the little link tree thing.
Look at that. That was amazing. I'm very impressed with that.
Do you have links on your Twitter about where to buy your dresses?
I don't, but I might set up a separate Twitter just for people who need that in their life.
Just so people can look at your sartorial.
I'm off to double check if What Violet Wore is actually an acceptable Twitter name at the moment, or if someone's taken it.
Get quite following, because you have some
dresses are a fetish. It turns out.
Dresses are just beautiful.
I need to set up an Instagram for them. That's the way forward.
Yes. Thank you very much for joining us. It has absolutely been our pleasure. Mrs. H, do you want to do your thing?
Well, thank you for hopping into our bed.
So we're now recording, just so you're aware. Can I have a moment's silence so that I can take the audio?
Shut up, Ben.
Are you introing?
Leon Macduff.
Oh, fuck you, Macduff. All right, fine. Okay.
Consummate professionals.
I like the way she's like, you can start this whole thing. All right, okay.